Mr. Arndt,
Present.
Ms. Fisher,
Here.
Mrs. Metzler,
Here.
Mrs. Milliken Dixon,
Here.
and Mrs. Ortiz.
Present. Are we in compliance?
Yes, we are.
We have a motion to adopt the agenda.
So moved. Second.
Roll call.
Mr. Arndt,
Yes.
Ms. Fisher,
Yes.
Mrs. Metzler,
Yes.
Mrs. Milliken Dixon,
Yes.
and Mrs. Ortiz.
Yes. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Is there any correspondence?
Yes, I've received communications regarding bus student and staff issues, all of which were addressed and/or directed to the appropriate personnel. I also received letters from both the Ohio wine producers. Oh, is it not on?
Yes, it's on. Just speak closer.
Don't speak right into it.
Yeah, speak
It's
closer.
on? Okay. I also received letters in regards to choosing our school calendar for next year from both Adventure Zone and the Ohio Wine Producers Association. Both, without reading each of their letters, were advocating for a later start date.
Do you have any?
Yes, I have an email from Dennis Maurer, who was the audit supervisor on the district's fiscal year 22 audit, just letting the board know that the audit was wrapped up. A summary of the audit was we received an unmodified clean audit opinion on the financial statements and on the federal single audit program. There were no findings or management letter comments, and the district will qualify for the Auditor State Award. So just
Nice.
wanted to note that.
Thank you, Kevin.
Agenda modifications.
Yes, we will be removing Q6. There is an addition to Q11C, an addition to Q12A8, a new 13, and then the old 13, 14, and 15 will now become 14, 15, and 16.
Okay, at this time, we'd like to welcome our visitors from GPD and the Hammond Group. They're going to give us a presentation.
Yes, so with them are Russell Gayhart, Mark Salopek, and Joe Swantek, who will be giving the presentation this evening.
Where's the microphone at? Here, I'll give
Do you
him-
want a free mic? Oh, okay.
Oh, he's gonna bring his. I'm fine, I'm fine. You're loud.
Sure. Sorry.
Is that on for you? Oh, I don't need to, I don't think.
Clicker? I think.
Are they? Okay.
You can just click for me. You can just click for me.
Okay, it's my right there.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Thank you for having us here tonight. I can tell you that we're here to give a general introduction about GPD Group, our partner Hammond as the construction manager, and then talk about the work that we've been doing over the past 2 months with Terri and Kevin on the new board office addition. A little washed out. Again, I'm Mark Salopek. I'm a principal and architect with GPD Group. I lead the GPD Group education team, and I'll show you a few examples of some work that I've been with GPD though for 38 years. So, done a lot of work around here. We were actually the architectural and engineering firm for Conneaut. It was almost 20 years ago. So it kind of ages me a little bit. So Russell Gayhart is our project manager. And Russell is our project lead. So he's our day-to-day person with Terri and Kevin. And Russell's been in the industry for almost 20 years. So he has a lot of experience, especially on K-12 projects. And then Chris Bader. Chris Bader is our project architect, and he is not available tonight. But then at GPD Group, we're a full-service architectural and engineering firm. We've been in business since 1961, and probably 80% of the work that Russell and I do is K-12 in Northeast Ohio. So we have everything in-house. The only two services that we would ever have a sub-consultant for would be kitchen consultant, which we do not need on this project, and then technology, which we will use a firm called IMEG out of Columbus. The one thing about GPD, I mentioned, 80 to 90% of our work is K-12 education. We do have an employees foundation at GPD, which basically we give grants out every year to schools that we work with. And our cycle, unfortunately, was over before we got engaged with you. But this year, we're giving out over $400,000 worth of grants to school districts. Every year, the cycle runs basically from November to the first of the year, and school districts can apply for as much as $20,000 in grants. And we feel like, and it's totally funded by our employees. We call it Give Back 365. So employees donate a certain amount of money out of their paycheck every week, and it really means a lot to the company to see this going on. But I'll give you plenty of time next year in advance, and we'll help you write your grants if you'd like to. Some of the work that we've done in the recent past, all of these, we're currently working on a new K-12 building for Triway. There's Akron Public Schools up there. There's Hudson. The one that I'm going to say kind of would be a good place for you to tour is that Amherst new K-3, and we did a board office attached to their building. It would be a nice tour to just go see how their board office functions. And then again, here's some other local projects. We work a lot up in the area. In fact, we're working currently with Ashtabula City Schools. We're doing a new bus garage for them, but a number of other projects, especially around in Trumbull County. And then we've also Russell was involved with the Trumbull County Board of DD recently in renovation of their office.
Thank you, Mark. I'm Joe Swantek with Hammond Construction. A little bit about our company. We have an extensive amount of K-12 experience, just as GPD does, and we've been in the business now for nearly 50 years. Will be next month in April. We're a full-service construction management firm with a bunch of in-house departments to support that, including accounting, estimating, our management staff, field supervision, field safety, as well as communications. We also then employ some trades through carpentry and labor divisions as well. So a little bit more about Hammond. We do a lot of K-12 work, just like GPD. You can see over $3.3 billion, and including $1.7 billion in CMR work. And what I really want to point out, well, those are large numbers. Really, that's focused in northeastern Ohio. So as you can see, a couple yellow stars there. We have offices in Akron, in Canton, and then up in Ashtabula here, you can see Geneva. So some districts we've worked on around you, as well as throughout this part of the state. So what's really important to us is to perform well as we look to gain your trust and for recommendations to other districts on future projects. We always recommend to call our past clients to everybody and talk about our work there. Here, just a little bit more, over 120 plus school buildings, as well as 60 plus different school districts we've worked in. So again, I'm Joe Swantek. I've been with Hammond now for over 20 years, working primarily on school districts, recently Highland Local with GPD Group, where we did some new elementary work as well as renovation there. A little bit more about the rest of our team. So in the center is our day-to-day personnel. Mike Gillen is with us here this evening, and then Rick Vidmar will be our daily on-site guy, who you'll see day in and day out. He'll open up, close at the end of the day, as well as then on the left-hand side, Frank Mangiardo with our pre-construction lead, Chris, our lead estimator, Kelly Graining, project administrator. On the right-hand side, Kim Adams will help with communications and getting information throughout the district out to the community and staff, students, as well as safety. Certainly that's a big thing in all construction projects as well as on an occupied site. So our safety director is Justin Snyder. Also happy to say, this is kind of tough to say here, but really what this points out is number of projects that GPD and Hammond have worked on together, which is over 1 million square feet of school buildings. And so we're proud to, say we've done that as a team with GPD. With that, turn it to Russell.
Thanks, Joe. Just a quick project update on where we're at with the Board of Education addition to the Media Center here at the high school. Just wanted to kind of talk through the schedule, show kind of where we're at in the process. As Mark mentioned, we're about 2 months into the design process. And so it's about a 6-month design process and then about a 9 or 10-month construction period. So I'll kind of talk through some of where we're at now at this first stage and talk about where we're going. A little washed out, but if you could see the timeline, we started in January working on what we call the schematic design, and really what that goal is to develop a floor plan, some elevations, kind of talk about how that will look and feel with the context of the high school. And so really what we're trying to do is blend this Board of Education office in to the high school to make it look like it was always here. And so that's part of the schematic design, is looking at the floor plan, elevations, starting to look into plumbing and electrical, mechanical, and structural engineering, just to really blend this into the high school. The next phase here is the design development phase, and so that's kind of where we're at right now. Working with Hammond, we're going to be developing cost estimating. That cost estimating will occur between the schematic design and design development, again, after design development and after the construction document phase. And so what that gives us an opportunity to do is put pencils down for a chance, look at the cost estimate, make sure we're on budget, value engineer if required, to make sure that we're moving into construction on a good, clean budget with a schedule that works for the team. And so we're looking at starting construction in July of 2023 with completion in March or April, basically spring of 2024. Just for some context, again, a little washed out, but the high school, as you know, is here. We're in the auditorium. The media center is off to the west side, and so the Board of Education office is planned to be on the south side of the media center. So the ring road that comes around here, we're going to be right in the center of that, right in the middle of that plat of land, just to the south of the media center. There'll be its own access. So if I zoom in a little, sorry. I'll try to talk through this a little bit. The main entry will be on the south side of the addition. There'll be a sidewalk from the existing high school parking with its own vestibule and secure vestibule for the secretary and reception. Each of the colors, which are hard to see, will be the treasurer's suite, the superintendent's suite, some office personnel, some dining office spaces, workroom, small kitchenette, and then a training space down in the center for professional development. It's about a 5,080 square foot space, and it'll, again, the idea is that it blends right off of that media center and ties into the existing high school.
Thanks, Russell. So as we discussed on your existing campus, so safety and security is going to be paramount during construction here. A few things that we do as a company in Hammond to help facilitate that is going to be certainly working on site logistics plans with the districts for traffic flow, fencing, directions of entrance, ingress, egress, those types of things as we develop the full plan to successfully construct this. Safety programs here, then each trade contractor will go through a site-specific safety plan where they're given some of the ins and outs necessary to understand what happens working on the site. And what's really important through that then is at the end they're issued a hard hat sticker that's got a number on it, and that number is significant so that if anyone has an issue with somebody, they create a problem, things like that, that number can be reported to us, and we can track that person down real quickly. We have a zero tolerance policy at that point, and they'll be removed from the site based on discussion. Additionally, a lot of sites like this, we would work with doing background checks so that we have proper people working on the job site that we know and should be able to trust here, okay? And coordinating, of course, with the local police, fire for access and those types of things throughout, and understanding what that structure will be for future as well. Additionally, then we'll have some different fencing, gates, signage, construction area, keep out, construction personnel, hard hats only, things like that, so that it really designates areas where construction personnel should be only, as opposed to any kind of students, staff, or general public, so that we really keep everybody segregated there. And really, those are some of the important things for getting through here.
And just on the site safety and signage, it might look a little bit different when school starts after summer, but we're working with the district and the principals to make sure it's clearly identified with signage. You'll understand where to go and not go. And so that's our goal, is to really make it look like a seamless transition for the construction. We want everyone to be safe and secure, and make sure that the signage is clear. And some of the images were hard to see, so we'll work with the district to maybe post this presentation on the district website, just so that you can maybe get a closer look at some of those images that we were sharing earlier. And then if you wanted, we'll just open it up to questions from the board if you have any.
The only question that I have is, so on the drawings that were given where it shows the potential parking lots for this building, and during the construction, is the road that you called like the loop road, which would be to the west, is that going to remain open?
It will always remain open for
Okay.
emergency vehicles. We want to make sure that that's clear, that when we work with the fire department and police, that they understand that there will always be a loop to the building for the building's safety.
Okay.
We haven't quite determined yet how the flow of traffic will be around for students, staff, visitors, teachers. We want to make sure that that's clearly identified before summer break.
Okay. Thank you.
I have a question about the parking as well. So, I don't know if these are numbered, but what is this curve along the curve of the road?
Okay, so that's easy.
Okay.
So you have parking that a lot of students will park in up on the north side, and I believe they come in here, or the access here, or even beside the auditorium in this direction. A lot of the teachers and visitors will park on the south side, and so that ring road or that access road just literally just comes and connects those two drives. So everyone comes off of the main road on the south side. If you were to continue left, that curve goes around the media center.
Yes. So then what is this sketching next to that?
I see. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I can't-
I know what the road is. What I'm asking is what's
Got
next
it.
to it.
So what we did, there was a
Yes.
request from the district to explore areas where we could add some parking. So we're adding to the Board of
Okay.
Education addition here, and there's going to be staff on this campus now that once weren't, and so we wanted to explore what 10 to 15 parking spaces would look like on this campus, new.
I see, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. And we laid out a couple options just to explore at this
Okay.
point.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Oh, yeah, sorry, and just one last, if the board would like us to come back and give updates along the way, again, this is the first time we've presented and gave an update. If you'd like us to come back, just let us know, and we'll give you, at where we're at in the design or where we're at in the construction, and give updates.
Great. Thank you.
Perfect, thanks.
Yes. They are here.
So now, our second set of guests for this evening, I'd like to welcome Dr. John Patterson and Mr. Jim Betts to our school board meeting tonight. Dr. Patterson is a former member of the Ohio House of Representatives, where he represented our 99th district from 2013 to 2020. He retired from teaching in 2012 after 29 years having taught in Jefferson. He also taught courses at Kent State and Gannon University. He is currently serving as the USDA State Executive Director of the Ohio Farm Service Agency, but still has his finger on the pulse of public school education in Ohio. Dr. Patterson co-sponsored the Cupp-Patterson Fair School Funding Plan during his time in the House. The plan creates a new school financing system for K-12 public schools in Ohio and was signed into law in 2021. His work began in 2017, and the work continues today as the plan encounters opposition from current Ohio senators and representatives who choose to advocate for private voucher programs in Ohio, which will divert millions of dollars away from public education in districts like ours, in favor of providing free money to be paid to private, charter, and parochial schools. Mr. Betts is a retired lobbyist for schools and a former member of the Ohio House of Representatives from 1975 to 1981. He was the Republican nominee for U.S. Senator from Ohio in 1980 and for Lieutenant Governor of Ohio in 1982. He was a practicing attorney for 25 years. Mr. Betts was the executive director of the Alliance for Adequate School Funding, and in 2018, he received the OSBA President's Award for his work as a longtime public education advocate. He is currently the facilitator of the Fair School Funding Work Group. They are here tonight to give us the important information that we need to know about what is happening in Columbus as it relates to public school funding and how it currently affects districts like ours, and how it will affect districts if some of the current legislation that is being discussed actually passes into law. I'd like to welcome Dr. John Patterson and Mr. Jim Betts.
Good evening. I hope everyone is accustomed to this wonderful spring-like weather we had today. In any event, about 5 years ago, in fact, it was in August of 2017, two unusually gifted and dedicated legislators came together and came to a conclusion that I think was obvious to most people in the education community, but that the then existing school funding system was totally inoperative. It was unfair. It was based on absolutely nothing but residual budgeting by the General Assembly. And in fact, none of the dollars that were being spent had any real basis in objectivity with regard to how much or how many of those dollars should be made available to school districts. So they said we need to do a complete remake. School districts with the same demographics and socioeconomic circumstances were getting far different amounts of monies from the state. It was unfair because no matter what happened, things were not being done in accordance with the formula. In 2018, of the 609 school districts in the state of Ohio, only 100 were actually on the formula. About 350 of those districts were getting more money than they deserved based upon their enrollment. And another 150 weren't getting as much money as they should be getting because they were growing districts and the state wasn't keeping up with their payments. So they came together and they said, we're going to do a remake. Not just any remake, no white tower remakes. This is going to be done by Ohio educators, those who best know the needs of our kids and the best way to meet those needs. So they basically recruited a group of then active superintendents and treasurers, one of which is sitting here before me this evening, I do believe. And he brought them together and they said, you're going to make a fair school funding plan that is going to be fair to every child in this state, to every school district in this state, and to every taxpayer in this state. We have a couple of rules for you. You're going to have to be able to, shall we say, justify with research, with established best practices, with successes in other states, with successes from your own professional experience. Every recommendation that you make, you are going to justify, justify, justify. If you cannot, it will not become a part of the Fair School Funding Plan. So Bob Cupp and John Patterson, two entirely different dedicated legislators, one a veteran of 30 years in elected office, the other in his first elective office. And he was there because he's a passionate teacher and he knew that school funding had to be fixed. John?
Thanks, Jim. And in full disclosure, I never really left the classroom, and I'm proud to say, if you are one of my former students in this audience, and I know you're out there, would you stand up? See how many, yes, thank you. I'm proud of you, and they helped raise me right. Something else you need to know, my wife taught in your district for over 30 years, and we love Geneva, we love Jefferson, and we love kids. So what's this have to do with anything? How many of you have a family budget? Okay, everybody does, practically. And you look ahead at what funding you anticipate, and you know about what your expenditures are going to be. Makes sense, right? But that's not the way it works with school funding. Your school board has to make what's called a 5-year forecast. Now, that's logical in theory. But guess how many years a state budget runs for, what its life is? 2. I challenge any of you to do a 5-year forecast not knowing what income is yours in years 3, 4, and 5. And that has been the problem, and that is why 4 times in the Supreme Court, the school funding formula has been ruled unconstitutional. And I retired from teaching to fix this, because without appropriate funding, your board cannot sustain programs or add programs or really negotiate with either union unless the funding stream is predictable, transparent, justifiable, and fair. Does that make sense? So 8 years in the legislature, this was my #1 goal, because our most precious resource are your kids. And if we don't invest in them, if we don't offer them the cornucopia of experiences and education, how will they ever be able to match their gifts with their calling and be productive citizens in our great democracy? It's all about kids. So we asked experts in the field, and you can see some of these folks. They're from around the state. Next slide, please. Yeah, there's some characters in the top left there. The handsome one on the left is Speaker Cupp, and the other guy, who knows. Next slide, please. So here's what's important. How many of you are tired with all the bickering and politicians not being able to get along and work together? Amen? This group did. We spent more time with each other in a bipartisan fashion to do what's right for our kids and what's right for our future. And here are the representatives and senators from around the state, both sides of the aisle, large municipalities, small rural districts. They all came together. Next slide, please. And here are some of the other folks from Chardon. And you know about Kevin, and you're fortunate to have him. He is laser sharp when it comes to finances, and now he's very skilled at transportation too, because that was his calling. And next slide, please. There's another name you'll recognize there, Jerry Brockway, started with us, and so did Dr. Hanlon from Chardon. Just wanted to prove to you, treasurers, superintendents around the state, to do what's right, because they're the ones who serve every day. Next slide, please. And more work group members. Go ahead. And keep going. So some of the legislation coming up, and Kevin, you know about House Bill 1 and the fair school funding is House Bill 10, and just keep rolling through these. Go ahead. All kinds of things in the state legislature. How many of anybody in here besides Kevin ever given testimony at the state level? There you go. Yes. We need you to do that again. Need you to do that again, because this is about you. They listen to your voices. And keep going. So, one more slide. There are the key words: objective, justifiable, transparent, amendable. We have to change it from time to time, tweak it, and fair to all. All right, so let's talk about base costs for a moment. And then, Jim, it's coming right back to you. So there were three major objectives from the DeRolf decision. One was the fact that we had not, as a state, done enough to construct and maintain our buildings. That we have done. It's been a slow process, but that box has been checked. The other has to do with school funding. And there are two key words: adequacy and equity. Now, I'm going to take the adequacy part. Jim's going to do equity. What we mean by adequacy is this: how much does it cost to educate a typical student in Ohio's schools? No one knew, but we figured it out, taking average costs from around the state in different categories. So I'm going to ask, Kevin, you look like an expert. What's the number one part of your budget that it goes for?
Salaries.
Salaries and also benefits too, correct? Have to include that because the district's paying that. And also retirement, because the board picks up some and the teachers pick up some. It is an intense human resource endeavor. That's where most of the money is coming from. So what we did in our base costs, next slide, please. Keep going, another one. Another one. And I'm going to come back to this young fellow. So what we did was to figure out average teacher salary, average benefits, based on research. Research tells us in grades K2, the ratio should be 1 to 20. Grades 3 to 5, 1 to 22. Or 23. 23 to 1. I said it backwards. I'm taught social studies, not math. And then in junior high, 25 to 1. In high school, 27 to 1. Take the number of students in a district in those particular grade bands. You know how many teachers you would need. Take the average cost statewide of benefits, retirement, salary, and we know what the cost of that teacher is in the classroom. But there are other things. How about EMIS coordinators? How about transportation? How about special needs students? How about English language learners? How about athletic directors? How about librarians? How about school safety? How about school resource officers? It's all there. It's all there in the base cost. And if you want to go deeper with it, we will share these slides with you. We'll also, and you can post them if you want, also some of the base cost literature. Bottom line is, we know what it costs per district. Now, who's good in math here? Oh my goodness, Mrs. Ortiz. So I got a question to ask. Always a teacher here, right? So if two districts, side by side, have the same number of students, is it possible that they may not receive, or their costs may not be the same in terms of their base costs for teachers? Is that possible? That's what you wanted to say. It could be. So now I'm going to help you telepathically, all right? So what you were just telling me is that some districts might have more students in the lower grades, right? So say Geneva had 200 more students, although the same total number, in the lower grades than Jefferson. And Jefferson had maybe 100 more high school age. Same number. Why would Geneva get more money? Because they're better? You can applaud, yes. Because what?
Because of
how the ratio is. Now, why do I mention that? That's what makes it fair. It's tailored to each individual school district. Every district's different, every district's needs are different, and that results in an adequate dollar amount for each district. adequacy, the Rolfe decisions answer in the school funding formula. Jim, you've got equity, buddy.
Thank you, John. By the way, the dedication that you've probably always heard from John as your state representative and as a teacher, etc., was evident wherever we went. One time I know we made a presentation at a law firm in Cleveland, and everybody had explained the various parts of the school funding system, and then John made a few remarks. And the remarks were of such intensity that as he sat down, somebody muttered, "That was the Reverend Patterson." And since that time, he's been commonly referred to, and of course, very casually but acceptably, as the Reverend John Patterson. Anyway, the Constitution also says something else, that there shall be a partnership between local taxation and state contributions to the funding of schools. It's a partnership right now, and for the last several years, it's been approximately 58-42. 58 by the local taxpayer, 42% by the statewide. But there has to be a way in which you accommodate those school districts who just don't have the capacity to pass levies, create local monies that will be able to help fulfill their part of that partnership. And as a result, we did spend a lot of time trying to understand the best way to determine how we can most fairly determine what part of the school funding requirement that John has just talked about should be paid by the local district. And that is, of course, one of the keys to being fair. Fair to the kids, fair to the districts, and fair to all taxpayers. And this basically resulted in utilizing not only the valuation of the property in the district, but the income of the residents of the district to determine that capacity. And those districts who had the higher capacity received much less state money. Those with lower capacity, much more. And we tried hard as we could to make sure that that truly was fair to those taxpayers and basically to those kids. So not only did we try to find out how much it really did cost to meet the needs of the average student, but also how much each individual district should contribute to funding those students. Another aspect, of course, of this that John just referred to briefly are those who have special needs. And here we had a problem. Coppin Patterson said, justify everything you recommend. And frankly, there were times when we determined that we didn't have enough Ohio data to determine exactly what our recommendations should be. So we asked for a few studies, special education, English learners, gifted, and others, to make sure that those additional needs that some children have are also met in the same objective manner as we're trying to meet those on the everyday student, whether it be transportation, all the things that John did mention. So what happened? Because of the fact that people like yourselves talked to your legislators, the first vote on the Fair School Funding Plan that was held in December of 2020 was House Bill 305. The vote was overwhelmingly in favor of the most comprehensive remake of school funding in the history of the state, 87-9. That, however, was just the first 2-year phase-in of the Fair School Funding Plan. We have 2 more budgets in which that same kind of a support must be forthcoming from the Ohio General Assembly. That will happen if you continue to make sure that your legislators are aware of the need for this school funding plan. John, I know that you didn't really want to be a politician.
No.
Okay. But you wanted to be one so that you could do exactly what you have been able to help get done.
That's right.
And I have not had this opportunity in front of your former constituents to congratulate you and thank you for all the things that you have done to make this happen.
So we could go on. I know we exceeded our 15 minutes, and I apologize for that. If you're really interested in getting into the weeds, we can do that. But here is my assignment to you. By 2 more phase-ins, we will have a fair funding formula for every district in the state. Will it be perfect? Heavens no. The only thing perfect is my wife. And Kim DeBacher, you can tell her I said that in public. Governor DeWine supports this plan. There is support in the House. We're not so sure of the Senate, but you have to get involved. We want you to get involved. This is not a time to be on the sidelines. This is not a time to be quiet. It is time for the Eagles to fly to Columbus and tell them what you think. We need you. Your state needs you. Are you ready to do your part for fair school funding for your kids and for your future? Yes. Thanks for having us. Take care.
Mr. Arndt, do you want to slide that back in? Yes, thank you.
That's good. Okay, do we have a motion to approve the minutes?
Move.
Second.
Roll call?
Ms. Fisher?
Yes.
Mrs. Metzler?
Yes.
Mrs. Milliken Dixon?
Yes.
Mrs. Ortiz?
Yes.
And Mr. Arndt?
Yes.
A motion to approve the treasurer's financial report?
So moved. Second.
Discussion? Roll call?
Mrs. Metzler?
Yes.
Mrs. Milliken Dixon?
Yes.
Mrs. Ortiz?
Yes.
Mr. Arndt?
Yes.
And Ms. Fisher?
Yes.
A motion to approve the invoices?
So
Move.
moved.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call?
Mrs. Milliken Dixon?
Yes.
Mrs. Ortiz?
Yes.
Mr. Arndt?
Yes.
Ms. Fisher?
Yes.
And Mrs. Metzler?
Yes.
Okay, for informational items, we have the current investment report. Do you have any, no comment? Okay. The legislative report?
Okay. Good evening, everyone. So, am I really loud? The Senate Education Committee held a second hearing on Senate Bill 1. Now, this is the one that died last year before the session was out, and so they brought it back this year to rename the Department of Education as the Department of Education and Workforce, and creates the position of Director of Education and Workforce. The bill also would reform the functions and responsibilities of the State Board of Education and the Superintendent of Public Instruction. The committee held sponsor testimony on Senate Bill 11, and normally I don't add who sponsors the bills, but this is our own Sandy O'Brien from Ashtabula, sponsored SB 11, which would expand eligibility for Ed Choice scholarships to all students beginning with scholarships sought for the 23-24 school year, and increase the homeschool expense tax credit from $250 to $2,000. The committee held sponsor testimony on SB 14, which would allow school districts to employ veterans of the U.S. Armed Forces that have met certain requirements as teachers without licenses. So their service would count in lieu of a college degree. They've already passed that legislation, that college degree, but not necessarily an education degree, and you can be a sub. Now they want to expand that to anyone who has served in the U.S. Armed Forces. The committee held sponsor testimony on SB 17, which would require the state board to update the standards and model curriculum for financial literacy and entrepreneurship in grades 9 through 12 to include free market capitalism content. So that would be a requirement for that curriculum. New bills introduced. Senate Bill 47 would prohibit a public employer from providing paid leave or compensation for a public employee to engage in political activities, including lobbying. SB 49 would enact the Religious Expression Days, or RED, Act, and it would require school districts to adopt a policy providing students, teachers, and staff with religious accommodations for up to 3 days. So in between last month's meeting and this, I had a question about why I don't do any report on the federal level, bills that are in the federal House and Senate. And the answer to that is 99% of the time, the legislation that we operate under is state legislation. Schools are under the purview of the state government rather than the federal government. And that's just you can go back and take a little civics update and find out that that's how that works. That schools are, each state is in charge of its own schools and its own school legislation. And so that's why most of the time when I'm giving an update, it is state laws that we're talking about. As always, if you have any questions, let me know. Thank you all.
Thank you. The ATEC report?
Excuse me, on February 25th, students from ATEC joined over 400 contestants from high schools and career centers across Northeast Ohio. The competitions involved everything from demonstrating a career skill to leadership contests. The top 3 contestants in each of the disciplines advanced to the Skills USA State Conference. ATEC came home with 20 medals, 4 gold, 8 silver, and 8 bronze. So these 20 students will be headed to Columbus. We swept the photography category, taking the gold, the silver, and the bronze. This was a competition of the best students from each school, and it was a real test of the skills, especially when you factor in the nervousness that was involved. The state conference will be held on April 25th and 26th in Columbus. The other issues at the forefront is the funding made available by the state for career techs. We're forming committees to put together paperwork for the grants. We're also talking to contractors about increasing the security, which is complicated because of the multiple entrances and multiple entrances to the various buildings. We're also in talks with information gathering to see about expanding the buildings, since so many of our courses have waiting lists due to lack of space. Our next board meeting will be this coming Monday, March 20th.
Thank you.
All right, so we're going to move on to the administrative reports, and we will hear from our administrators first, and we'll begin with Ms. Hrina.
It's good for you.
All right, good evening. All right, so far we're halfway through the month of March. A lot of things going on at GPS right now. We're still doing our extended learning program. We did a couple rounds of 3rd grade to get ready for the Ohio State test because of the whole retention provision to start the school year. We did a round for kindergarten through 2nd grade, and now we're on to 4th and 5th grade test prep. So Mrs. Brigard is working with 4th graders 3 days a week, and then Mrs. Myers and Mrs. Bobish are working with 5th graders 3 days a week as well, as we get ready for state testing, which starts the 2nd week back from break in April with language arts. We also celebrated Dr. Seuss's birthday, March 2nd. It was also coincides with Read Across America Week. So our PTO, our wonderful parent group, purchased cupcakes that were passed out that day at lunchtime, full-size ones. They also bought all the kids little birthday prizes as well. They got a pencil and an eraser. We also did drop everything and read time for those few days. The students enjoyed that. And then our 4th grade students went to the kindergarten classes to read with them. So a lot going on to start off March. 4th grade also went to visit ATEC. Actually, all the 4th grades went in the district, so thank you, Mrs. Doherty, for organizing that as our career rep. So they got to see different jobs. They actually got to see one of their teachers get handcuffed during the public safety demonstration. And they gave some creative reasons of why your teacher could get arrested. Definitely a learning experience. There's some pictures too in your report of that. So the kids had a really good time that day. Flip the page. So Mrs. Myers has done a lot of interesting things the last couple months in her 5th grade English language arts classes. They worked on a timeline for Black History Month in February, and then she continued with another project in terms of developing a Google Classroom. She got permission from parents, and the kids are actually doing read-alouds that anyone can access in the school. So if you have a Geneva email address, I believe you can use the code that's on that page to access and see all the leveled stories that they've added. So when I turned this report in last Thursday, there was 18 books, and since that time I've gotten numerous updates. So the 5th grade students keep adding more read-aloud books that everyone can access at school. 5th grade science has been working on dissecting owl pellets and designing their own food webs. The activities center on the transfer of food energy from one organism to another, and our PTO purchased those owl pellets for Mrs. Ald's science classes. And last but not least, we have the Red Bow 5K coming up this Saturday in honor of Mrs. Early and Mrs. Bryan. It's going to start at 9 a.m., so if you haven't registered for the race, please do so. All the proceeds go to the scholarship for Geneva High School seniors that plan on attending college to further their education. And then applicants must write about how a teacher and or another staff member in the school system has influenced them in a positive way. So thank you to all of those individuals who organized that race for those two lovely ladies. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Hrina.
Next, we have Mrs. Porcello.
Good evening. Short and sweet for student services. This month I submitted the alternate assessment assurances to the state of Ohio, and that is just a justification, although there was really no justification included in it, for why the school district would be over the 1% threshold for students participating, or percentage of students participating in alternate assessment throughout the district. So for ELA, we're projected to be at 1.33%. Of the students that are being tested will be tested using the alternate assessment. For math, it's 1.16, and science 2.14. And it was questioned as to why the science number is double, because there's less students that take the science test. It's only given 5th and 8th grade, and then our students in high school that take the end of course exams for science. So it's a much smaller number, but the number of students taking alternate assessment only went down by 3 with who we have. We also have Mrs. Feeney back doing virtual speech for GPS and GMS. We currently have about 45 students on her caseload doing virtual speech. So far this week, it has gone really well. We have the help of Mrs. George at the middle school and Mrs. Saba at GPS to facilitate the speech therapy sessions. I've been in and out checking them out. It's always fun to watch, something that you usually don't get to see because it's in small groups and in a special room. She is back for the time that Mrs. Drenick is out on leave. And I want to thank all the team members, a lot of them are here, for being flexible during all of the transitions that we've had, particularly in special ed this year, between our speech therapists, mostly, and just flexible in our caseloads and the amount of work that we're doing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Mollahan.
Good evening. Couple things. Your board packets are pretty extensive tonight. It includes
Quite a bit of data from our Restart readiness testing assessment, which is kind of like our gear up for the state test. Just to kind of get into the quick nuts and bolts of it. Big kudos to the middle school staff and the teachers, the amount of work that was put in from when we originally took this in the fall to when we just took it here recently. Our numbers across all grade levels and across all tested subjects dramatically increased, with a lot of students making jumps as much as 30 to 50 points. So again, middle school teachers who are here this evening, fantastic job, and from my perspective, thank you guys very much for the work that you guys do.
Yeah.
We had various teachers doing various activities in class. Mrs. Calusi did a lesson on feudalism. We had Mrs. Clemens brought in somebody from the United Way. Let me get to that. United Way partnered with the middle school wellness and nutrition class to provide a lesson on a meal on a budget. Healthy, affordable meal ideas and recipes were presented and put into a cooking lab application environment due to the food cost inflation and a growing need for assistance in Ashtabula County. Mrs. Clemens created an opportunity for students to learn how to create meals on a budget. During this lesson, students gained a better understanding of food security versus food insecurity. Learned about resources available in Ashtabula County for experiencing food insecurity and utilized a minimum budget in the creation of a healthy and fulfilling meal. So in addition to just what this lesson looks like on the surface, all of us, both either in the schools or personally, we know somebody who probably deals with this. So it was a great way for the United Way and Mrs. Clemens to work together to help teach our kids what I like to refer to as life lessons besides just regular academic lessons. So kudos to you. Mrs. Pierce did an activity, and there's some pictures in it, and I will point out the one that is a little embarrassing, but I'm proud of it. They did a lesson in terms of creating gallon characters to talk about gallons, pints, and quarts. A couple students made one that referred to me as Gallon Girl, so there's a picture up in the 6th grade hallway that I proudly will say has me in some lipstick and a nice purse that says Fashion Girl on it. So that is definitely a little bit of ribbing that I am definitely okay taking. So that was a fun selfie I took with the young ladies as well. So if that's circling on social media, my apologies to the Geneva community. And then finally, I want to point out 7th grade student, Miss Taylor Sheeman. Taylor represented us last weekend at the middle school indoor state track meet that took place in Logan, Ohio. Taylor finished 2nd in the 1,600-meter run. She finished 11th in the pole vault, which I think anybody who can take a pole, run, stick it in the ground, and fling yourself over another pole, whether you finish first or whether you finish dead last, that is a huge accomplishment. She also finished 4th in the 800, where she ran her PR, which is personal record. So congratulations to Taylor. Besides the Geneva Middle School, you have made the entire school community proud, so I wanted to make sure she received some special recognition tonight. And that is the highlights for Geneva Middle School for this month. Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Brzezinko.
Thank you.
It's going to be difficult to follow that, but Mr. Mullahan, I have a quick question for you.
Yes,
So
ma'am.
what do we attribute the increase in the scores? I mean, how did we get such a good
Do you
increase?
want the simple answer?
Yes,
The hard work of all the teachers.
yeah.
I'm absolutely not ashamed to admit that my staff absolutely make me look better than what
I probably am. So my thanks to them. That is the reason why our scores jump so dramatically, and they are working their tails off every day to hopefully show that increase and those increases in scores when we take the test for real. So obviously, in addition, our students as well. Our students are working super hard, but again, it goes from the top, works its way down. So that's the simple answer.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mrs. Brzenko.
Good evening. Mine's short and sweet as well. My staff have been working on the PBIS. We're trying to get recognized this year. So we have a lot going on. The teachers are busy behind the scenes every day working on our matrix, making sure the students understand what soaring means, setting good examples for them. And we also involved our AESA, and they put on, or I shouldn't say they put it on, but they purchased a assembly for us called the Super U. And it was for grades K to 5, and there were some messages in there that I thought was really important. Number one is we all have the superpower to choose our words and our actions. Respect and kindness is something that you have to pass on. You don't just get it. Trust is something that you build between your friends, your classmates, your teachers, and family. Trust takes a long time to build, but it can easily be damaged. Joking around with classmates is okay, but if someone asks you to stop doing that, you need to stop doing that. So these are some of the messages that we are promoting on a daily, sorry, it's hard to follow Mark. I'm very emotional about Mr. Mullahan right now. We're talking about that on a daily basis with our staff and our students and our families. Ditto to Miss Farina about Dr. Seuss. We also celebrated his birthday. Second grade did a writing activity that you can see on, I have a picture for you on the back. They wrote about the Cat in the Hat, and their picture is actually on the book. So they're always doing writing activities in second grade, and very proud of that. Writing is a goal for us at Osterberg, and every grade level is participating in some fashion. Again, Ms. Farina mentioned the fourth grade students going to ATEC. I heard nothing about a teacher getting arrested, though, I can tell you that much. But they were very excited to have pictures as well. They were on lawnmowers, they were on four-wheelers, just something for them to think about as a career, because college isn't for everyone. And they're pretty excited. A lot of them came back and said, I'm going to ATEC. I said, good for you. Good for you. Mrs. Nappy, once again, had a former Geneva alumni in her classroom. It was Kyle Foote. I don't know if many of you know who that is. He came in and talked about how he uses math and science daily at his two jobs. He's a boiler operator at Lubrizol, and he owns his own wood turning business. He talked to the students about the importance of school and how they learn, and what they learn will be used on a daily basis in their careers. And finally, I would like to recognize Caroline Janowski. She's a fifth grader at Osterberg. She played the part of Pooh in the Winnie the Pooh Kids at the Ashtabula Art Center. So very proud of her. And again, there's our soaring eagles from each teacher is attached to that, and some of the fun pictures. You can see Mrs. Hollis as she is as 100 years old. Her students are also 100 years old. The Cat in the Hat books that I was talking about, you can see their picture in. The fourth grade, I have a couple pictures of them there. And the Super U Assembly, it was like a game show host, and at the end, the kids got slimed. I mean, it was really cool. And a picture of Mrs. Nappy with her guest speaker. So, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Mr. Weatherholt.
Aw.
Congratulations, Mark. Hear thee. The Tuffy Tribune is here. Our school journalism class of 15 students, which just started this semester, has produced their first paper. It is actually an online paper. If you scan the QR code that was provided on the front, that will take you to the online site. This will be getting sent out to the students via email from my office tomorrow. So if parents want to see it, your children will be getting it. It's a great opportunity for our students to have expand their writing capabilities and to put something out that they're very proud of. It's a very interesting article. The thespians performed this last weekend. Annie, congratulations to them for such a great show. These are such talented young people. I come up and do this board report and I get nervous and I hate it. But to watch these kids get up on that stage and perform their characters and do such a great job. It's just really incredible. It was really nice to see so many community members come out and support them. We had 662 people in the audience, making the audience the size of the pre-pandemic. So congratulations to them, and what a great job. The AP biology class tapped 2 of our maple trees up front. They made the most expensive 1 cup of maple syrup in world history. By time Mr. Barbeau got it cooked down to where it was usable, it was really expensive. I will say this, it was delicious. I had some of it. He invited me down. It was really delicious. What a great experience he provided for our students. Thank you so much, Mr. Barbeau. Ralph Anderson said, "There is no limit to what can be accomplished if it doesn't matter who gets the credit." I'd like to end with congratulating Mr. Markajon on being nominated for the School Safety Standout Award with the Ohio School Safety Center. Thank you, Mr. Markajon, for all you do in keeping us safe.
Next is Mr. Riley.
Good evening. Just a few items on my end this evening. The district leadership team has done a phenomenal job this entire school year. We're currently in the process of working through the One Needs Assessment, which is a very lengthy state document. Once that is completed, it turns into the One Plan, which then turns into the funding, the federal funding that we do get. It is a very time-consuming process. All of the teachers and the administrators that are on that group have put in countless hours to get it to this point. It is all due on April 30th, and we will certainly make that deadline probably a few days in advance, so kudos to them. As a reminder, the testing is coming right after spring break. It'll be here before we know it. On April 12th and 13th, it starts off with 3rd, 6th grade in ELA, and also the high school ELA 2. April 17th and 18th is the 4th grade and 7th grade, and April 10th and 20th is the 5th grade and 8th grade. It is not going to surprise me if the student scores jump considerably, like Mr. Mollahan was saying. The staff has done a great job in getting the students prepared. It is a very stressful time for everybody involved, whether it is an adult, meaning a staff member or a parent, or a student. But we've prepared our kids very well, and I look forward to getting the results when they come back. From a gifted update, we did have the gifted evenings at the library, or excuse me, the STEM activities evenings at the library earlier this month. In both cases, with the elementary night and the middle school night, there was approximately 20 students with their families that were in attendance, and there was roughly about 50 to 55 folks that were total that were there. Obviously, there was a lot of activities that they went through, but I'd like to just share, Lauren Webster is the facilitator over there, and she did a great job in helping me kind of organize this. So here's a short little email that kind of speaks to the volumes of what occurred that night. Those both nights. She says, just wanted to let you know how last evening's family STEM night went. We had similar numbers as with the first event, 20 students with at least one parent and some siblings in attendance, a total of about 53 people. We even had at least one family who came to both nights. What I noticed with last night's event was that the parents were a bit more involved. They seemed more eager to jump in with their kids at activity tables, and that was really great to see. While there were a few parents who were hands-on at the first event, overall they seemed more likely to let the kiddos enjoy the fun. Last evening, there were a substantial number of adults who participated in the owl pellet exploration activity and the engineering challenge. For some reason, parents were happy to let their students have all of the fun at the designer slime table. Students were excited to have a chance to try the library's VR headsets too. Thank you so much for inviting Ashtabula County Library, District Library to be a part of this endeavor. My staff and I had a great time interacting with students and their families. Both of our organizations share the mission of educating and supporting the members of our community. Partnerships like the recent STEM Family Nights allow us both to more effectively serve the needs of the students and their families. So it was a great evening on both ends. Hopefully we can continue that moving forward in the future years. Thank you. And the last part, I did include an article from the Gazette that was there, that there was a reporter there both evenings, so I included that in your packets. And finally, we are conducting the SOAR, what does SOAR like an eagle mean, the essay contest. All of those are to be due to the library on March 24th. And finally, on a couple of things on my end, the Wellness Committee has been hard at work. We're currently with the staff going through the Fruit and Veggie Challenge. The first activity of the first 3-week scenario was a water drinking challenge where staff was just kind of monitoring their own water and see how well they did. There were some staff members that came up and said, I didn't realize I didn't drink as much water as I should. There were some that says I drink a lot during the week water-wise, but when I got to the weekends, I wasn't. So they were being more cognizant of it, and that's the point of the Wellness Committee, just to kind of help everybody be cognizant of all that. There were 70 employees that participated and turned in their sheets, and we were able to draw Cavs tickets for the Cavs versus New York Knicks game that were the prizes for this first round, and I believe 14 staff members are going to get a chance to go see a playoff atmosphere game near the end of the season here. Finally, on my end, before I get to that, I did include the Wellness Committee members that was asked at the last board meeting, so they are there. You're welcome.
I saw that.
And finally, just a kind of an appreciation on my end to Laura Jones and the kitchen staff. They've always done a great job, been very welcoming to the students every day they come in and out, but they were the ones that prepared the cookie trays for the STEM nights at the library. Without hesitation, Laura jumped right in, and Laura's office currently is right behind mine. And today they had Dino Day, so they were serving dinosaur-shaped chicken nuggets, I suppose, in the cafeteria. And I was all excited about that for some reason. Sometimes you get excited, and I think it was not only the lunch, but everybody was getting a little dinosaur. So now in my office, I've got a couple little dinosaurs. I kind of tell this story because I went to the elementary school this afternoon and was talking to a second grader, and she said, I said, what was your favorite part of the day? And he goes, math. I said, great. I said, what'd you have for lunch? He says, I had dinosaurs. I said, did you get a little dinosaur? He says, yeah. I mean, his eyes lit up. So for the kitchen staff to kind of think out of the box sometimes and make the students feel welcome, that's phenomenal to see and wonderful to be a part of. Mr. Mollahan, I'm just going to take a moment. Thank you. Our friendship is built in the last year and a half. What you said about the staff, 100% correct. I wish you nothing but the best, my friend. Thank you.
Mrs. Doherty.
Good evening. Does that sound right? Can you hear me? Okay. Some things happening in our building. Recently, Mrs. Jackham's third graders were fortunate to be visited by Mrs. Annette Brunner. It's a great-grandmother of one of our students in Mrs. Jackham's class, and her son, Dr. Mark Brunner, who has written a book about his mother's experiences during her childhood in France in the 1930s and 40s. Mrs. Jackham's class has read many stories about families immigrating to the United States and the reasons why they needed to leave their homeland. Dr. Brunner and Annette Brunner presented a slideshow of what life was like in a small village, which included family traditions that are celebrated in France. The class was able to make real-world connections about what life was like growing up in the country of France during World War II. Dr. Brunner encouraged the class to find out more about their own family's history and stories and explained to them about how he came up with the idea for a book because of the childhood stories that were told to him. He explained to them about the importance of writing down stories so that their history is remembered, and that is so very important. Especially everybody that has children and grandchildren, that's a good idea to do. So thank you from Mrs. Jackham for getting that all together, and I know the students really enjoyed that. In Mrs. Kirk's fifth grade class, students were given an assignment to write a report on planets in our solar system. Students were put into a small group and given a planet to research. In each group, the students took a role as a researcher, illustrator, or presenter. They had to find something about their planet that was different from the other planets. The illustrator made a poster on the planet they were assigned to. The presenter stood up in front of the class to share the information that their group researched about the planet they were assigned. For their culminating project, students made a paper mache of their planet to display in the classroom. So that's not really a lesson about planets per se, but really about giving students choice and voice in the projects that they're working on in the classroom, and I thank you, Mrs. Kirk, for that. I know the planets are hanging in there. They look like they put a lot of work into it. So. And then Mrs. Simmons in art class, she is combining art and writing. One of our goals is writing, so we appreciate her combining both of those. Second graders have been designing their own Pokemon cards. Even though I'm asking them to put them away all the time, they're designing their own. They get to create characters and then write about their powers, their weaknesses, and battle skills. They also get to name their Pokemon. It's been a big hit for them. So again, and she's combining art and writing. We've got a lot going on with Accelerated Reader. Our students just are gangbusters. In February, there was a contest in Mrs. Bowser's class. A goal was set of reading 1,500 words or more. The grand prize went to Andy Averill. He read 8,901 words in February. Second place was Mr. Lucas Akos. He read 7,930 words. And third place was Ms. Fern Holodniak with 4,878 words. I think we can all say that they exceeded the contest goals. Also meeting the goal was Chase Booth, Becca Trask, Trip Hawking, Avery McCrone, I can't hold on, Corbin Lovejoy, Lane Pelton, Christian Martinez, Addie York, Zoe Young, and Lincoln V. Young. So a lot of kids in her class made that goal. Another contest in Mrs. Scarnich's fourth grade class with AR. They had to read books within their reading range and pass their AR test with 80% or higher. The top reader was Jerry Fallon with 13 books read and quizzes passed. The whole class together read 94 books in 2 weeks and passed quizzes with 80% or higher. And then lastly, in Mrs. Ball's fifth grade class, Cole Onion, top reader. He read 26 books, chapter books, 1,732,599 words read, and he is a reader. So I think you can say that we really appreciate having AR in our building. Lots going on. Then we did have our Someone Special dances, 2 Fridays in February, with the support of the junior class and junior class advisor, Mrs. Blevins. The students got to create a new memory with their Someone Special person. The smiles each evening, my hand's getting tired, each evening were abundant. Everyone was dressed for the occasion, dancing the night away. The moms looked beautiful. It was really nice. Parents were also very pleased that the cost to attend the dance was going to the Geneva Area City Schools junior class. They were very happy with that. So, and those kids and Mrs. Blevins put it all together. Everybody had a great time. Even the one evening it was raining and windy so bad, but that was the biggest turnout, I think. So hopefully we can continue to do that. What a great experience. And then, as some have mentioned, we have been taking field trips. PTO sponsored a field trip for the 5th grade class to go to the Great Lakes Science Center. The trip was a positive experience for our students. Not only did the students have the chance to visit the exhibits, all of the students got to make a jumping jitterbug in which students explored how circuits and electricity work together while designing and creating their own jumping jitterbug bot to take home. And boy, were they excited. PTO also sent the 1st grade class to the Great Lakes Science Center on March 14th. All I have to say is, best day ever. Those are the words heard as the students were exiting the bus when returning to the school, and they were very loud and excited about it. Thank you to the PTO and our bus drivers for making these trips possible, and especially with PTO because we were unsure if we would have a driver, and they might have lost the money to send the students, and they were still willing to take that risk to make sure that our kids were in attendance. And Mrs. Schenk is right here, our PTO president. Thank you so much. And then, of course, our fourth grade class did attend to ATEC as well. I did not plan anything with handcuffs, but I'm glad that the kids had a great time. They really did. They came back excited as well. It's so nice to be able to have field trips again and just to see their faces in excitement when they're coming back into the building and all the pictures that the teachers take and share. So the seeds of possible career opportunities were definitely planted with them. And then I know I always talk about families, and I want to talk about it again because our teachers are just very dedicated to this whole notion. It's taken us a while to get it going with everything going on, but our first family session finally came to fruition after months of planning. Students participated in getting to know you activities and shared interesting facts about themselves, fostering the start of building a peer resource system to counter any effects of students being put in a situation where they might feel bullied or they might feel alone. It also is the foundation for building community within the walls of our school. Future activities will revolve around building our character traits we're focusing on this year, using books on developing social emotional skills, and team building, to name a few. And this, again, is where we have separated the whole school, different grade levels assigned with each teacher, and that has created the family group. And we've got a lot of things planned. Teachers are just taken off with that. So it's very important, and we are going to keep reporting on it. And it is such a privilege to be able to come up here and share all the great things that they do every single day. And this is just a couple things. They're doing a lot of things, our teachers, every single day. And of course, Mark, thank you for everything. I appreciate it. Good luck. And Tony, I couldn't do safety without you, so way to go. Thank you.
I have a variety of things to report on this evening. The first one being the free remote area medical, dental, and vision clinic coming to Lakeside. So again, we hope that you take advantage of that. It's completely free. There's no ID that is required. It's on a first come, first served basis. Again, that will be at Lakeside High School, April 1st and 2nd. Just want to mention again, I know Ms. Farina talked about it earlier, but for anyone wishing to participate in the Red Bow 5K, it is this Saturday, March 18th at 9 a.m. at GPS. I want to take a moment to talk about House Bill 123. This is also known as the Safety and Violence Education Save Students Act. So just shortly here in the near future, by March 24th, we have to have threat assessment teams in place in our buildings serving students 6 through 12. So obviously for us, that is our middle and high school. And the team has to include a variety of stakeholders that cut across multiple different disciplines on each team in order to serve in that capacity. Each member has to go through an approved training. So we have our teams established at this point for both middle and high school. All of the people on the teams have gone through the training, and we have just been meeting to finalize our plan and protocols, which are also requirements under this legislation. So according to the National Threat Assessment Center at the United States Secret Service, quote, "The goal of a threat assessment is to identify students of concern, assess their risk for engaging in violence or other harmful activities, and identify intervention strategies to manage that risk," end quote. So again, just wanted to report on that because definitely more information will be coming, and that will be communicated out as it's right around the corner. In thinking about next school year already, our state of Ohio is preparing to qualify students for free and reduced price meals through Medicaid applications. So according to the Ohio Department of Education, Ohio is one of 14 states selected by the U.S. Department of Agriculture to participate in the direct certification with Medicaid demonstration project. So this means for the 23-24 school year, families that receive Medicaid will automatically qualify for free and reduced price meals without having to fill out another application. So that is exciting news for students that would qualify. I know that Mr. Riley had mentioned Laura Jones, our Director of Food Services. I would also like to recognize and thank her for a different reason. Laura Jones has secured $56,600 through a National School Lunch Program Equipment Assistance Grant. And this will be for 2 dishwashers, one at GPS and the other one at Austenburg, as well as a 2-door refrigerator at the middle school. So I certainly appreciate her efforts in fulfilling and obtaining that grant. We heard a little bit from GPD and Hammond earlier this evening. We have created a page on our district website. If you go under the district information tab, you'll see a link for the board office addition project, in where we will be posting updates for that. One has already been posted, and every time we get a new update, we will get that posted so that you can follow that journey as we go through that. Some strategic plan updates. So since the last board meeting in which I reported, we had our first Student Success and Facilities Committee meetings. The Student Success Committee is facilitated by Mr. Riley and myself. The 4 areas that we are looking at for student success is academics in the state report card, personalized learning, how to help grow students in the Portrait of a Graduate competencies, and then the last area is the Each Child, Our Future state plan, which focuses on educating the whole child. Our facilities committee also met. That is facilitated by both Mr. Burgard and myself. We are looking at 3 areas when it comes to facilities. One is our current facility needs, and Mr. Burgard shared some information and recent updates, as well as what he feels would need addressed in our buildings in the next 3 years. Next, we began to brainstorm ideas for what we should do with the house on the hill in front of the high school. And lastly, we discussed how we can take some of our current spaces and move to a more personalized learning environment for students. Our finance committee, facilitated by Mr. Lillie, met as well, and they started brainstorming ideas, and he provided some samples from other districts for the group to look at in regards to some goals, and also talked about levy campaigns and the changes when it comes to the role that treasurers and superintendents can take in helping to pass levies. So I don't know if Mr. Lillie, you wanted to comment at that?
Not at this time.
Okay. And then our community engagement committee, this is facilitated by Mr. Mollahan and myself. We met again, we started going back through the ideas that were brainstormed at the first meeting and having some more in-depth conversation about each of those. The areas that that group is looking at is communication, collaboration, and engagement. And one example that we started to talk about, and the group seems very interested, is creating a brand for the district and how we might go about that. Next, I would like to briefly comment on scholarships. So Ms. DeBacker has sent out over 30 scholarship opportunities for seniors. So for seniors that are here or parents who have a child that is a senior, I would ask you to please talk to your students about that and make sure that they take advantage of those opportunities that are out there to hopefully secure some money for school. Lastly, our Soaring Eagles. So starting at Austenburg, 4th grade, Mackenzie Brunson was chosen by Mrs. Capo. She wrote that Mackenzie is a wonderful student. She chose her because she is always putting forth effort and cares about her learning. She is also helpful and kind to her classmates. Mackenzie has a positive attitude and is a joy to work with. At Cork, 1st grader Aiden Cantor was chosen by Mrs. Schroeder, and she wrote that Aiden has always worked hard to be a model student. He gives 100% and wants to do his best. Aiden is improving in all areas academically while easily making friends. He is kind to his classmates and everyone he sees. Aiden has proven he is a soaring eagle. At GPS, we have kindergartner Brady Madrano, chosen by Mrs. Shepard, and she wrote that Brady is an upstanding student. He puts others' needs before himself. He is kind and willing to help at all times. Brady is the child that seeks out the child in need, and he will go out of his way to make someone's day. At the middle school, chosen by Mrs. Calusi, is 8th grader Robert Hart, and she wrote that Bobby is a kind person and a serious student. He works hard to stay on top of assignments and always checks in when he has been absent to get caught up. Whether working independently or in a group setting, Bobby stays on task and is very helpful and encouraging to his fellow students. I look forward to seeing what he accomplishes in the future. And lastly, at the high school, freshman Zachary Reed was chosen by Mr. Dose. He wrote that Zachary is a delight to have in the classroom. He is always engaged in the lesson, enthusiastic about learning. Zachary has a quick wit and brings that energy with him to the classroom. He loves school and enjoys his time in school. He is very conscientious and respectful of his peers and staff. Zachary is active in school, participating in both indoor and outdoor track and field. He throws the shot put and loves to compete. Zachary enjoys school and his time while here.
Thank you. Okay, moving on, I recommend adoption of the enclosed calendar for the 23-24 school year.
Move.
Second.
Discussion?
The calendar that I've recommended is the one that when it was sent out to vote, it did receive more votes. The vote was 123 to 75. This is also the one that I talked about in correspondences that I've heard from Geneva on the Lake, that they were advocating for the later start date. So with that being said, this is the one that has the last day for students on June 5th and staff on June 6th. We would go on winter break starting December 22nd, and the student first day would be August 30th, and graduation will be June 2nd. We've already confirmed that date, as I know that was asked.
Are you saying that Geneva on the Lake wanted a later start date than the one on this calendar, or they were happy with this start date?
They were happy with this draft of a start date of August 30th. The other option, I believe the start date was August 23rd. So they were hoping to have our students who work at many of the businesses a little bit longer.
Okay.
Before they go back to school.
Okay.
Mrs. Metzler, what they'd actually like to see is after Labor Day.
Yeah, and that's why I was
Yeah.
wondering if they were still, if they were happy with
Yeah.
this, or if they were still pushing for us to go later.
I think
than
it's
this.
happier than
Okay.
the
They
other
were happier.
version.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yep.
And I'd like to thank Mr. Weatherholt and team for getting a graduation date on here. Thank you.
Roll call?
Mrs. Ortiz?
Yes.
Mr. Arndt?
Yes.
Ms. Fisher?
Yes.
Mrs. Metzler?
Yes.
And Mrs. Milliken Dixon.
Yes.
I recommend that the board approve the enclosed inter-district open enrollment policy.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call?
Wait, were there any changes on this from last year?
Just dates.
Just dates.
Okay.
Nothing from a content standpoint.
Okay.
Roll call?
Mr. Arndt?
Yes.
Ms. Fisher?
Yes.
Mrs. Metzler?
Yes.
Mrs. Milliken Dixon?
Yes.
And Mrs. Ortiz.
Yes. So you'll see you have numerous policies for review because Neola had an update. The ones that are lined out have been replaced by 8120. That replaces the deleted policies that they removed. So this is just the first read for them.
Can you tell me, Dr. Treharn, the code on these, many of them have the number and then EH behind it. What does EH mean?
Just initials from our consultant.
Okay. Thank you.
I have a question as well. So I know it's just the first reading, but policy number, where is it on the big page? 3120.09 isn't on the list, but it's because it's being deleted. It's the volunteer, rescind volunteers. Can we talk about that a minute? I'm not sure what that means. We're no longer having volunteers at school?
No, it's replaced with 8120. So the ones that are lined out, 8120 replaces them. It's the new.
Oh, I see.
Correct, it's a new policy.
That's what you just said, and
that-
I didn't understand the
Yes.
connection. Thank you. Okay.
They
so-
basically were condensing two different policies into one.
I
So the
see.
312009 and 412009 both deal with volunteers. Both
Yes.
policies have been deleted because they've been replaced with 8120.
Okay. Thank you.
I recommend the board approve the enclosed resolution of memorandum of understanding approving a bus incentive for OPSI Local 307 and new drivers.
Move.
Second.
Discussion?
Yes. So this is an MOU to offer a stipend to try and attract new drivers. So we are offering a $1,000 stipend for anyone that is a new driver that we hire to the district. Half of that would be paid at 6 months, and half of that would be paid at 1 year, obviously to keep them in the district and not just have, hire someone to get the stipend and then leave. And it also offers a stipend to our current drivers who are doubling, tripling, or changing routes. So for the second semester of this school year and both semesters of the 23-24 school year, it offers our drivers a stipend as well.
Outstanding. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much.
Roll call?
Ms. Fisher?
Yes.
Mrs. Metzler?
Yes.
Mrs. Milliken Dixon?
Yes.
Mrs. Ortiz?
Yes.
And Mr. Arndt?
Yes.
I recommend the board approve the following resolution, approving selection of Hammond Construction as best value construction manager at risk and authorizing contract for pre-construction services.
I'll move.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call?
Mrs. Metzler?
Yes.
Mrs. Milliken Dixon?
Yes.
Mrs. Ortiz?
Yes.
Mr. Arndt?
Yes.
And Ms. Fisher?
Yes.
I recommend the board approve the following resolution, approving schematic design stage submission for the board office addition to the media center project.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call?
Mrs. Milliken Dixon?
Yes.
Mrs. Ortiz?
Yes.
Mr. Arndt?
Yes.
Ms. Fisher?
Yes.
And Mrs. Metzler?
Yes.
Actually, I do have discussion. I apologize. I just have a request. They said that they would like to come and update us periodically, and I would enjoy that. So we can keep inviting them. That'd be great. Thank you.
The treasurer recommends that the 2023-24 budget with the amounts and rates as determined by the Asheville County Budget Commission be approved.
I'll move.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call?
Mrs. Ortiz?
Yes.
Mr. Arndt?
Yes.
Ms. Fisher?
Yes.
Mrs. Metzler?
Yes.
And Mrs. Milliken Dixon?
Yes.
I recommend that the board approve the enclosed resolution to terminate the employment contract of Jay Miller.
So moved.
I'll second.
Discussion?
Second.
Roll call?
Mr. Arndt?
Yes.
Ms. Fisher?
Yes.
Mrs. Metzler?
Yes.
Mrs. Milliken Dixon?
Yes.
And Mrs. Ortiz?
Yes. I recommend the following personnel actions for 22-23 contract year.
I'll move.
Second.
Discussion?
I apologize. Are we on 12?
We're on 11.
11.
Do you have a comment?
No, I'm sorry, I don't.
Sorry, I was waiting for you.
I'm 12, I do.
I certainly would like to thank Mr. Mollahan as well. I know that we haven't worked together too long, this only being my second year in the district, but I know that we've had many conversations, and I truly appreciate working with you and will miss you, and definitely have been an asset to the district.
Agreed.
Roll call?
Ms. Fisher?
Yes.
Mrs. Metzler?
Yes.
Mrs. Milliken Dixon?
Yes.
Mrs. Ortiz?
Yes.
And Mr. Arndt?
Yes.
I recommend the following personnel actions for 23-24 contract year.
Move.
Second.
Discussion?
Now, this is what I have a question about.
Yes.
Okay. So I didn't count, but it looks to me, I don't know, 50 or 60 substitutes.
64.
Thank you.
I counted.
Thank you, Mrs. Metzler. 64 substitutes, and still we're short on subbing on a day-to-day, and administrators are going in classrooms, and I guess my question is, how many is enough, and what can we do to get more people on this list? If 64 isn't enough, and the same question for bus drivers. I didn't realize that we had, how many, Mrs. Metzler?
13.
12, 13 substitute bus drivers. No?
They're listed as substitutes because they may do trips in the summer. These are our main drivers. This is for summer trips.
So they're not available on school days, day to day?
Well, these are our regular drivers.
Why are they, I'm sorry, why are they listed under substitutes?
Per the contract, there are certain situations where they need to be called first or be given the opportunity to drive, and it requires a substitute contract. But all of these are regular drivers. None of them are actual substitute drivers.
I see what you're saying. I didn't read the names carefully enough. So we don't have 13 bus drivers waiting around for a phone call to sub.
No.
That was my question. Okay. Oh yeah, I guess it is. I apologize, drivers. I didn't read carefully enough what the names were. Okay, that's my question. Okay, that answers it. Thank you.
Roll call?
Mrs. Metzler,
Yes.
Mrs. Milliken Dixon,
Yes.
Mrs. Ortiz.
Yes.
Mr. Arndt.
Yes.
And Ms. Fisher.
Yes.
I recommend approval for Mrs. Milliken Dixon to attend the OSBA State Legislative Conference on 3/21 and the OSB Northeast Regional Spring Conference on 3/27.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion?
Am I allowed to vote?
You should abstain from.
Thank you.
Roll call?
Mrs. Milliken Dixon,
Abstain.
Mrs. Ortiz.
Yes.
Mr. Arndt.
Yes.
Ms. Fisher.
Yes.
And Mrs. Metzler.
Yes.
The next item on the agenda is public participation. As we have discussed at previous board meetings, while the board has no legal obligation to provide for a period of public participation, the board has adopted Board Bylaw 0169.1 to provide for public participation during regular meetings of the board because the board values the community and the opportunity to hear its concerns and feedback. As provided by Board Bylaw 0169.1, the portion of the meeting during which the participation of the public is invited shall be limited to 30 minutes unless extended by a vote of the board. Each statement made by a participant shall be limited to 5 minutes in duration unless extended by the proceeding officer, and no participant may speak more than once on the same topic unless all others who wish to speak on the topic have been heard. All participants are expected to comply with the standards set forth in the board policy manual with regard to public participation. As noted on the board's agenda during today's meeting, one period of public participation will be held, and as a result, we will now begin the 30-minute period of public participation for today's meeting. Amber, are you timing?
Yes.
When you do step up to the microphone, please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Rob DePofi. I live at 4940 Catherine Drive, Geneva on the Lake, Ohio. I'm both a community member and an employee of Geneva Area City Schools. I'd like to start off by telling you tonight that those of you that are seated here in front of me aren't here by accident or by a fluke. You've been given a God-given responsibility to do your job and to do it to the best of your ability. So in my mind, that means all of you should have the ability to understand things are not going well in this school district. In the hallways of my building, there are signs which read, if you hear or see something, say something. The time has come for me to say something. I promise you, many in this school district want to stand up here, but are worried about retribution in doing so. But by staying silent as the minutes, hours, days, weeks, and months pass by, has only made us all complacent and complicit with what's been taking place. It's come to my attention our school board and superintendent are of the belief that only a small percentage of teachers are unhappy with how things are going for this school district. That is absolutely, positively, without a doubt, not true. With the roots of that unhappiness, please don't hold that against me for my 5 minutes either. Of that unhappiness leading back to this group I now stand before. In fact, when a survey was sent to members of neighboring school districts about the attractiveness of our district, at least one of the board members sent a letter to OEA to cease and desist that activity and prevent that type of information from being compiled. Wasn't GATA supposed to document what we've contended for over a year now, that this district is not a destination district any longer? Isn't that board members' desire to stop that survey realistically a form of censorship? Were all of you other board members aware of that letter? Why would that be done if communication was supposed to be something to be improved on from the outset of our superintendent's tenure with this district? Dr. Treharn, in her desire to get to know her employees when she took over, came up with a great idea, and it was to interview the entire district, one person at a time, to get a pulse of what was to be done. I believe she was overwhelmingly told communication was the biggest issue in her day-to-day affairs for running the district.
In my opinion, and in the opinion of all of my colleagues, the issue of communication is still a huge weakness. Dr. Treharn, in her conversations with me, has never been anything but professional, but she missed an opportunity, as did this school board, in the time after the strike. I feel Dr. Treharn should have come to all of us, at least in the building she works in on a daily basis, and reconcile differences as we move forward. Truth be told, communication, or lack thereof, was the catalyst for that strike. And though the strike was only for a couple of days, the impact has been far-reaching and communication breakdowns pervade this district. The communication gap is widening due to the treatment of all the people in this district. I've spoken to many who have not had the same experiences I've had with Dr. Treharn, and I think that's unfortunate. But because of those positive experiences, I'm standing here tonight. It's my hope this group will take to heart and value what I'm saying as somebody who spent the last 29 school years in this district. I currently work in a building where my friend and teaching colleague for nearly 25 years has been put on paid administrative leave. This situation started on December the 12th, and the days of him not being here continue to pile up. This gentleman teaches a state-tested topic, American government, and has nearly all the juniors who will be taking that assessment. For 3 months, those students have not had leadership guidance of that coworker, and I don't understand how a decision made in a timely manner has not taken place. Dr. Treharn told me in 2 conversations, once before the strike and once after the strike, that she worked for the school board. So I'm confused about what's going on with this teaching situation. Have any of the board members asked about this educator or any other situations involving other employees being put on administrative leave? What happened to communication being a priority? We're told as educators we're to excel at being able to communicate with our students and parents and promote the well-being of the district. The same logic should apply to you. So I'm asking this governing body on behalf of my colleagues, how is this situation not being dealt with in a more effective and expedient manner? Our students deserve better. If this group knew such an action of this was going on, how was a contingency plan not created to better serve the young people? Were the students of my colleague ever notified by the board or superintendent about this administrative leave? What happened to communication be a priority? I never thought that I'd ever quote something from a Marvel movie, but with great power comes great responsibility. Those of you seated here this evening have great power and great responsibility.
30 seconds remaining.
I know it's uncomfortable when people get up here and yell and scream and ridicule or are sarcastic towards you on a monthly basis. Being criticized is something none of us want to experience. Do you think any people in this community are doing this because they want to? And I'll conclude quickly with this. I want to leave you with a quote from Fahrenheit 451. It says, "Those who don't build must burn." And as the leaders of this district, no, I'm begging you to start looking to build instead of burning, because we all want this district to be better than it is right now. Thank you for your time.
Mary Allison, 5076 Lake Road East, Geneva on the Lake, Ohio. I'm here on behalf of OPSI Local 307 as president. How many are we here? So Local 307 has voted overwhelmingly for a vote of no confidence in Dr. Treharn. We have tried to give all aspects a chance with Dr. Treharn, but instead of improving our working environment, it is deteriorating. Where once we could have issues worked out amicably with supervisors, but now it goes to the superintendent and we have to get unpaid administrative leave, and then we have to be investigated. This is leaving a shortage in all areas, and for some extended time. This is not fair to our employees who have to cover everybody that is on paid administrative leave and everything else. We have done a disservice to your employees. There's no compensation for them assuming all these job responsibilities when these people are not there, and it's not fair. We have brought up the bus supervisor issues on every labor management meeting, and nothing seems to be getting resolved, so why is she gonna change any of her practices? We don't have, let's see, oh, yeah, there we go, sorry. We have already lost 10 drivers because of her and the environment that she creates at the bus garage. We have, yet the superintendent continues to wonder why we can't get bus drivers. The word has been out there, guys, just letting you know. We ask also that none of the drivers, the 10 that left, they were just trying to get out of the stressful environment that they were in. You can't blame them. You're not supposed to be stressed when you're driving a bus full of children to get them safely to their areas. Let's see. Sorry. We've also asked for pest control, and that has also failed. And yet we still have our custodians and housekeepers trying to take care of these pest things that came up. Finally, I heard this week, court finally got a pest person out to take care of the cockroaches and things that were in the teachers' lounges. So let's see what else. Let's see, there's so many. Okay, so we've tried to work out issues, without grieving it, because that's what communication's supposed to be like. You're supposed to be able to sit down with supervisors, work it out, and process so it doesn't go over and above like it has done. And now we have to go, and we used to openly talk to our board members, but now we're told, nope, gotta go through the superintendent. What happened to open communication? Communication is so important for any kind of aspect of a successful business. You're only gonna get resolution if you can communicate with each other. So we hope that the board takes our vote seriously and not another vote of victory for what you were trying to accomplish when you got Dr. Treharn on board. It is really sad to have our district leaders treat the district employees like we're the enemy when we're just trying to do our job, and we're all supposed to be there for the greater good of our students. And if the board feels employees are the enemy, then maybe you shouldn't be sitting there.
Jennifer Thompson, 3215 South Myers Road, Geneva. Since October of last year, I've been standing here begging for change. I'm here almost every meeting begging you for change. Tonight, I'm not going to do that. I'd like to address Mr. Mollahan's resignation. Mr. Mollahan, you've been the absolute best middle school principal we've had since my eldest daughter started middle school in 2016. You know these students, you care about them, and you care about the families. You've always held communication with me. I'm pretty sure you emailed me from your hospital bed when you were sick. You've spoke to my children when they're having issues. You've always made me feel at ease sending my children to you. It's a sad day seeing you leave. I know this is one of the toughest decisions you've made. This is our district's loss and PV's gain. Congratulations on your new position. In a less toxic environment, I blame you.
Amy Wood, 6624 West Maple, here in Geneva. So I came and I spoke last year. This time I spoke last year about a full-time nurse at GPS and other districts. I have a son who has a disease that is a metabolic disease called glycogen storage disease. His body cannot store or properly break down any glucose or sugar. Jacob is basically in a state of ketosis all the time. I'm sorry, but this is really hard for me. His body, last year, I came to you guys, and basically what you said was, you had the high school nurse contact me. She contacted me one time and said, I'm gonna change his whole plan. I said, no ma'am, you're not. I have an entire team at Cleveland Clinic that we work with all the time. I never heard from her again. I ended up losing my job last year because I had to pick him up so many times from school. So this year, I came and I started subbing at the schools, and I love it. I love the children, I love all of this staff, and I wouldn't trade it. But here we are again, at least 2 to 3, 4 times a week. He is dropping so low, so dangerously low, and we're putting the job of a full-time nurse on these teachers, staff, principals who are doing 15 different jobs a day. Under the Ohio law, let's talk about 3 L words: laws, lawyer, and liability. Under the Ohio law, section 3313.7112 for diabetic care, the school should have a licensed healthcare professional whom is assigned to the school, should be checking and recording blood glucose ketone levels for helping the child to do so, administering glucagon or any life-saving emergency medicals, snacks, or medication. I provide all of that to you guys. I don't ask for anything. Under the 3313.713 of the law, in absence of a school nurse, a trained employee trained in medical must be available. Section E1, Board of Education must provide training that complies with these guidelines, and the training should take place prior to the year. I could go on for hours with the things that should be getting done, but let's talk about liability. Who's liable now? I've done what I need to do. The teachers, the clinic, we all keep needing to do what we need to do and doing our part. Who's liable now? Jacob does not live a normal life like you or I. He can't even enjoy going to gym because he has to sit out. He has symptoms like shakiness, anxiety, sweats, low sugar, muscle cramps, vomiting, headaches. Let's talk about the last L. Let's talk about a lawyer. I think it's time for my family and I start to seek some legal counsel. He deserves the same education as every other kid in this district. And sitting here tonight, I am so disappointed. I sit here and I hear construction. I hear this, I hear that. As a substitute teacher, you guys should not be looking into construction of a building. Your students are suffering. Your parents, your staff, we're all suffering. And now my child cannot get an education because the teachers are doing 15 different jobs that they shouldn't have to do. Again, I take him home every time he needs to go home because the sugars are in the 50s, the 40s. Why should that end up on the teachers? I'm scared still. I'm terrified that he could die in our hallways, and who's gonna help him? Now he's getting anxiety being in class because he's terrified who's going to help him, because 80% of the time we don't have a nurse. So I'm begging you, instead of thinking of office buildings, instead of this divide, please start thinking of these children, because it's not fair to him. It's really not.
Eric Davis, 3107 South Myers Road, Geneva, Ohio.
Can you say your name one more time?
Eric Davis.
Eric Davis. Thank you.
I'm here tonight in support of the amazing, intelligent, and hardworking students and staff of Geneva Area City Schools. I'm appalled by the current state of the school district. We went from having such a high morale in the district to having a very little, if no morale in the district at all. These teachers may work for you, working as hard as they can to teach the minds of our tomorrow. Your building administrators have made that very clear tonight. But you need to understand that at the end of the day, we are all human. Our teachers who serve our school district with the best of Eagle pride are being mistreated and their voices are not heard. You think that you hear them and their concerns, but you don't. If you did, we would not be where we are tonight. As a class of 2022 graduate, it deeply concerns me how things are around these school buildings in the 2022-2023 school year. I do not know as much as I used to, as I am no longer a student here, but an alumni, a proud Geneva Eagle. But from what my friends who still attend high school tell me and what they are concerned about, it also deeply concerns me. Why is it we ignore the problems in our district in favor of working towards the personal benefit of ourselves? You have the entire community pleading and voicing their concerns loudly to you, and we've been doing so for so long. But yet you push us aside, still worried about spending hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars towards a new board office attached to our high school media center at the high school, an educational tool that you took away from our high school students. You also try to find ways to prevent us from voicing our concerns and telling you the truth, that this district needs change immediately. I'm really sorry, but I don't see how ignoring not only your Geneva community, but the students and staff of Geneva is putting the students and staff first, as it has been stated multiple times throughout this school year. Do you think that perhaps your full focus and priority should be towards the still ongoing busing issue, finding great teachers and talent for our school district, to fix the rift and mistrust that you alone have caused? From what it seems, you don't seem to care about the more pressing matters that affect your staff and students. As I said earlier, at the end of the day, we are all human, and we can only take so much before things become too much for us, especially as a student at a young age. The very last thing I will share a concern about is about our gifted and special needs students. I have family and friends in the district who are in need of special needs services. I myself, throughout my elementary and middle school years, needed special needs services. What I may have experienced back in my days of elementary and middle school are one thing, but what I've heard and seen in the present day is mortifying. There shouldn't even need to be problems regarding this, because gifted and special needs students are just as important as students in a general education classroom. I shouldn't have to be a family member or a good friend who's constantly worrying about my family and friends coming into your school buildings and having a bad day or not having the services that they have been promised to be provided. As I mentioned earlier, I was special needs in elementary and middle school. If I didn't get the services and help I was provided with back then, I wouldn't be up here reading this speech of concerns to you tonight. That is how far I've come with the resources from back then, and I will always be there and support the parents and students of gifted and special needs students. I say everything I've said with all the respect I have, but enough is enough. I pay my own taxes, and I work a pretty decent job to pay these taxes, and I know for a fact that I do not sleep well at night knowing my tax dollars, as well as other Geneva citizens' tax dollars, are being spent on things that are not too much of a concern. Fix the things that are most important: staffing, busing, gifted and special needs services. Thank you.
My name is Canaria Tipton, and I live at 1080 Mechanicsville Road. I have provided my address, which I am uncomfortable with. Something needs to be done about the current racism and bullying situation within the schools. I currently attend Geneva Middle School and no longer feel safe there. My parents moved me to Geneva to attend what we thought was a better school, but this year has been the worst year of my life. I really hope that someday I can walk into the school and not be bullied because of the color of my skin or what my hair looks like. My parents have always protected me, but they can't in the hallways. That is your job, to make sure that I feel safe at school. You were formally informed by my mom on January 18th that this was an issue in your district and nothing has changed. Geneva is so proud of their eagle, but my eagle wings are breaking due to the bullying, racial slurs, and mental and physical abuse that I deal with weekly here at Geneva. I came here today to speak about myself personally, but I wanted you to know that it is happening to others as well. I should not be afraid or nervous to walk into the school. Every morning when we get by the stoplight, my stomach starts to tighten because I never know what someone is going to say to me or do. I can't stay silent anymore. I have been called a slave, had been made fun of my hair, and had my hair touched. Told to go pick cotton, called numerous racial slurs, and have even had one student tell me that they are a part of the KKK and they don't like black people. You don't understand until you take a walk into my shoes. And don't tell me this is not racism, because my sister, who is white, comes to school every day and loves being here. She does not have to deal with not one issue that I have to go through. The zero tolerance policy that you say we have here at Geneva is a joke. Zero tolerance means not tolerated. Bullying is not tolerated, right? Do you not consider this bullying? This is my first time I have ever had to go through any of this. I should not have to go home from school every day hating myself and life because of the color of my skin. I beg my parents daily to get me out of this place. I am asking you today to please do something. Thank you.
Michelle Craig, 200 Cherrywood Circle, Geneva. I just have a couple comments for tonight. On the agenda tonight, I saw that there is a bus driver being hired. He's already been hired. Daniel Konwelski. He has a criminal complaint, an open docket, January 9th of 23, and we just hired him. Assault charges, and he should have no contact with children. Why? I really enjoyed hearing Dr. Patterson. Our families went to church with him for years. I think a lot of him. What I found very interesting was that our board gave Mr. Arndt particularly gave a standing ovation for Dr. Patterson, but on November 18th of 2020, he voted no on the Fair School Funding Resolution, the only no vote. This was a resolution to endorse the Fair School Funding Plan as introduced in the Senate Companion Bill to substitute House Bill 305 and to encourage the 133rd General Assembly to expedite the passage of this bill. And he was our only no vote, but the motion carried. So I just thought that was interesting. And I would close with that I find it very interesting, and I'm thankful that we have employees here at Geneva Area City Schools that are verbose at grant writing and can go out and get free money, but why are we writing grants for dishwashers and you're getting a superintendent suite? Make me understand.
Kathy Simmons, 650 Bridal Court here in Geneva.
I'm sorry, can you say it again?
Kathy Simmons.
Thank you.
I'm here to speak on behalf of GATA and to remind you that last year GATA issued a vote of no confidence against Dr. Treharn. We'd like to make it abundantly clear that our stance has not changed, and if anything, we are more resolute in our position. Thank you.
Good evening, Board. My name is Bonnie Cooper. I live at 185 Roosevelt Drive. Thank you for allowing me this opportunity to speak. I don't attend many meetings, and I appreciate the media who make it possible. I do watch every board meeting. You don't have to be in the room to feel the animosity that's going on here. Makes me sad. I'm a day late and a dollar short with what I'm going to eventually talk about, but in my job, we have to regularly, periodically review our goals. So I looked up the Geneva mission on your website, and there's a lot, it's great, but one thing stood out to me. It says, creating a partnership with students, families, staff members, and community. I don't feel like that's happening right now. I then took it a little further and I looked at the Ohio School Boards Association because I am very interested in what's going on and learning more. And there was a lot in there, a lot about the school board's jobs and things that are quoted. One thing I did find in there that was very interesting was that you are the ambassadors between the school and the community. That's listed on their site, and I'm assuming that's what you're using as your guidelines to be a school board member. And the other thing that I found truly interesting is the part about the fiscal responsibility and providing the fiscal responsibility to the community. I would have never guessed I would be here talking after this community passed a 1.25% earned income levy, which was huge. That committee met and started to talk about it, and it was 0.75. And the committee who made that happen said, yep, that'll keep Geneva schools status quo. Let's go for 1.25. Let's shoot for the stars. Let's give our kids here in Geneva a competitive edge. So proud. Countless hours, this community stood up and said, yes, let's do it. The problem I see is that I don't hear any talk of a STEM lab. I don't hear of a robotics club. I don't hear of a much needed football, soccer, track stadium. Are our kids still paying to play here in Geneva? Is this what that levy was passed for? So I'm not here every day. I work in a different district. I hope these things are being talked about, and I just don't know about it. I hope, I pray for that for our Geneva kids. Instead, I hear about this multi-million-dollar building that's going to sit out here, that's going to have your stamp on it forever. You are building a building that this community did not vote for you to have. Don't get me wrong. I want nothing more than every employee, including the secretaries and the superintendent and fiscal response, everybody. I want everybody to have a great place to work. Do I think that building over on Eagle Street is it? No. But there are other options. This is where I'm a day late and a dollar short seeing what you voted on these resolutions a little earlier. It's going to be very hard for the next group to go knock door to door to get a renewal of that 1.25, which we all know is coming, when they're those people that we said, look, you passed this and we're going to do great things, and they're going to say, you used it to build a building. Now, I understand school funding is a mess, and you're probably not even using that money for the school, but that's the perception. That's what people are going to think. And are you really ready to put your stamp on that? I'm asking you to make a seriously difficult decision, take a step back, gain the confidence of this community back, and say, wait a minute, maybe there are other things we can do. Let's think about this. Sorry, I lost my place there. I implore you to reconsider and be accountable for the fiscal health of this district and to be good ambassadors, because that's what it says you wanted to do when you signed on.
30 seconds remaining.
Okay. I would like to close tonight with my unending support of the teachers, staff, principals of Geneva Schools. We are so happy with the education that our children received here. I am absolutely brokenhearted at hearing how many of this staff are out seeking other employment in other districts because they are so unhappy here. It makes me so sad. The love and support my family and my children got here, I want that for my grandchildren and other people as well. Our kids are watching. Let's make great decisions and be amazing role models for them. Thank you.
So we've reached our 30 minutes. The 3 people that are at the microphone will be the last 3.
I have a question before I start. Am I allowed to show a picture for reference as to what I'm about to talk about? Just really quickly.
Are you allowed to do what?
Show you guys a picture for reference of what I'm about to talk about. Like, just come show you a picture on my phone.
Come up here.
Yes.
That's fine.
This is all that I have to show you. It's just this.
And what is your name?
Mackenzie.
Mackenzie.
My name is Mackenzie Herrick, 4567 Wood Road, Madison, Ohio. I'm a senior here at Geneva High School. I know that it is the superintendent who makes a choice as to whether we have school, a 2-hour delay, or a snow day. It is not the board, but you are above her, and I feel that this needs to be addressed because there's some extremely poor decisions being made by the person you put into this role. Friday, January 13th, 2023, the first day back in school where we had a fair amount of snow. We had school anyways. I live in Madison, and from my road, I take 84 all the way to the high school. After the 4-way stop at County Line Road and 84 coming into Geneva, the road had not been plowed. I was doing my best to follow the tracks in front of me, and unfortunately, when I was in front of Spring Hill Winery, my right tire hit the snow piled in the middle of my lane and sent me sliding into oncoming traffic. That is my car. I promise you that if my mother had not seen me before the car, she would have been in an even bigger panic than she already was. Monday, January 30th, 2023. My mom's a middle school teacher, so the plan is for me to ride with her to middle school and then I'll drive to the high school. Madison, the roads were good condition, but as we came to the light in 84 and South Broadway intersection, we could tell Geneva's roads were a different story. Our light at the 84 and Sherman intersection was red, so we stopped. The car behind her was going slow, but obviously sliding on the ice while trying to stop so they wouldn't hit her. She had to scoot into the intersection so that they wouldn't accidentally hit her. Then when our light turned green, she slid, trying to extremely slowly turn onto Sherman. That is a busy intersection directly in front of the middle school. Clearly, this is an unsafe situation. As she came down the hill, I told her there was no way I was driving myself to the high school, so she decided she would drop me off.
When she tried stopping at the bottom of the hill to turn into the middle school parking lot, it was too icy to stop, and she ended up sliding right by it. And come to find out, she was not the only teacher that happened to. Again, an unsafe situation. To try and get to the high school, she continued down Sherman and turned onto Kiwanis Park Drive, and she slid while trying because there was, again, a lot of ice on the road. When she got to the end to try getting onto 84, there were 2 cars stopped on the hill going towards the high school. The cars lined up behind them because it was unsafe to go around and the roads were so bad. Take a moment to think about the fact that not only did we have buses, parents, and teachers trying to get to the schools in these unsafe conditions, but you also have lots of student drivers. I later learned that the first car that was stuck was a fellow senior who was extremely scared in that situation, and she is here tonight. When drivers arrived at the high school, the parking lot wasn't even plowed, let alone salted. You are literally asking for an accident to happen. Mr. Arndt talked at a meeting about our superintendent being not only licensed, but she's certified in all things education. Well, if this is true, shouldn't she know better than to put students in that unsafe of a situation? Tuesday, March 7th, when arriving at the high school, we very quickly realized that the parking lot had not been salted. Not until there were already multiple cars in the parking lot and lots of students had already been dropped off did the truck come through and salt. I later found out that multiple people almost slid off of 84 driving to school because the roads were in poor condition. There was absolutely no reason for us not to have gotten at least a 2-hour delay in the situation in hopes that the roads would get cleared up. It does not matter if other districts canceled school that day or didn't cancel school that day. What matters is what the conditions are like in the district the superintendent works for. But she doesn't even live in our county. And on that day, you put parents, students, teachers, bus drivers in danger. This is a serious issue that needs to be addressed because somebody could get seriously injured, or worse, somebody could die. This is horrible. You need to think before you go, oh, it's fine, just have school. Thank you. Do better.
My name is Wyatt Babick. I live at 270 South Eagle Street, Geneva.
Can you say your first name one more time?
Wyatt.
Wyatt. Okay. Thank you.
Do you know how hard it is to not have a teacher when you're learning a sensitive topic such as sociology? We need Mr. Deering back in the building because there are many classes that he teaches of importance, such as government and modern history. We need him back in this building. And our theater department has a flight situation that has yet to be unsolved, that has been talked about numerous times. Our band has broken instruments that need to be repaired, but yet you do not do anything about it. Why? I know. It's hard to have friends that loved learning, but now what you have done to this school district makes them not wanting to learn and not wanting to come here. They used to enjoy learning, but now they don't. I don't enjoy being here anymore. I loved school, but whatever Dr. Treharn has done to the school is an abomination. Something needs to be changed now. Thank you.
Jack Dubsky, 142 Lockwood Street, Geneva, Ohio. Once again, I told those nice ladies over there I wasn't going to speak tonight. I was going to keep my mouth shut and give everybody else time. But we started a committee, a bunch of us, on February 7th of 2023. It's called Geneva for Change. Our primary goal is to restore quality education back to the Geneva Area City School District and make it a place teachers want to stay, principals want to stay, and a place where kids feel safe, amongst many other things. And I'll tell you, we went out one Saturday, our committee, and we went knocking, cold knocking. And I was a little worried. We were going to be met with some resistance by some haters. I'll tell you what, this community rocks. They're paying attention to what's going on. We, in 1 month's time, have garnered 500 signatures for a vote of no confidence in Dr. Hrina-Treharn. And she knew it was coming tonight, so she sent me a certified letter trying to keep me from showing up before the meeting and speaking with people. You're not going to bully me. I told you last meeting. You want to solve the bullying in the district, you're the biggest bully in the district. You're not going to shut me up. Nobody has. I'm 53 years old. A lot of people have tried, but I'm a fighter. And I'm here to fight for this district. My son's in first grade. I don't want to have to open and roll him out. I don't want to have to put him at St. John like I did the other kids. I want him to stay here because he's got quality teachers at Austerberg Elementary that are phenomenal. And you better start recognizing it and treating teachers better. How do you sleep at night? You know, when I go to bed every night, I look in the mirror, and I got to be able to look myself in the eyes. If I've done something wrong or I've done somebody wrong, I can't do that because I have a conscience, okay? I don't know how you sleep at night. I pray for you. I really do. I pray, you know, I don't mean to bring Christianity into the schools, but I'm a devout Catholic now. And every Sunday I go to church and I pray that you're going to wake up and these other 6 board members are going to wake up and start having this district ran the way the taxpayers want it ran. And your leadership is not the way we want it ran. We are presenting a vote of no confidence tonight to go along with OPSI, to go along with GATA from the community of Geneva, Ohio. 1 month, 500 signatures. And the signatures we're gonna keep getting the signatures. We're gonna keep talking to people. We're not going away. You can send all the fancy letters, any type of cease and desist letters you want. They're gonna go right in the garbage. And I'm gonna do Jack, and I'm gonna fight for this community. Take care. Start thinking, start doing better.
That's it, that's all. You said 3, right? That's it.
Hi, I know that you said that there was only room for those 3, but I am certain that there comes a time when silence is betrayal. And just like you garnered the 15 extra minutes for the speaker, I'm certain you'll guard mine.
No, the 3 were the last. Thank you, but no.
Just so you.
I recommend the board hold an executive session to consider the appointment, employment, dismissal, discipline, promotion, demotion, or compensation of a public employee or official and matters required to be kept confidential by federal law or rules of state statutes.
I'll move.
Roll call.
I didn't hear you. Who seconded?
Sally.
Mrs. Ortiz?
Yes.
Mr. Arndt?
Yes.
Ms. Fisher?
Yes.
Mrs. Metzler?
Yes.
And Mrs. Milliken Dixon?
Yes.
We will not be returning for further actions after this. Thank you for attending.